quite a lot of information about what happened. So we know that for this particular point, we have a sales volume of 5,400 and an average price of 135,000. This is called descriptive analytics. It tells you what has happened in the past. So you can see what has happened in the past in terms of year-on-year sales compared to the previous year. This doesn't tell me why. And that is not descriptive analytics, but diagnostic. So we're going to try and find a root cause for variations in the sales volume. And we can do this using the key influencers visualization. Now, the text can be quite small on this, so make sure you blow it up as much as you want. So there are three various fields that we can put in. Analyze. So this is the metric, the measure we want analyzing. So I want to know about sales volume. Now, what are going to be the key factors in sales volume? Well, I'm going to say it could be the year. It could be the month. And let's have a look. We've got what influences sales volume to increase. Well, the start of the new millennium, when the year is between 2000 and 2007, the average sales volume increases by 1,230 on average. And you can see that the computer has done some bins. They've grouped together some of the values. And here we have it 2000, 2000 or below, 2000 to 2007, and some other year values, and comparing them with the average. So we've seen how we can do all of these lines in our own visualization, but here the computer has just done it for us automatically. So what about what causes sales volume to decrease? Well, we're after 2008, or we're in the period 2007 to 2008, or the month is January. So sales volume decreases by around 648 units compared to all of the other values of month. So it could be February, March, etc. But January is particularly lower. Or when the year is over to the year 2012. So here you can see an analysis. So you can just hover over this analysis and the computer gives you some information. Now, top segments. So this is what happens when the computer divides up the data into various segments. So we've got two segments here, one with 288 rows and the other 360. So let's have a look at the 288. I've just clicked on it, and this is the segment of in between 2009 and 2012. And you can see that the sales volume is 939 units lower than the overall average. Similarly, we have one where it is less than or equal to 2008 or is greater than 2012, so not in that period, and year is greater than 2007, so it defines it fairly oddly. And then what do we find sales volume being high in? Well, we'll find it high in greater than 2000 and less than or equal to 2007. Now we can then experiment. We can say, well, maybe the region name has something to do with this, and we can see that region name is Greater Manchester, that influences sales volume to increase by an average of 1.3 thousand units. And region name being West Midlands or West Yorkshire also does. And what causes it to decrease? The other regions. But again, we still have the month of January being a factor, and we have Merseyside, South Yorkshire and Tyne and Wear being factors. Now that we've got more than one item, we can click on each of these to get a different graph. Now suppose we didn't want region name to be considered at all as an influencer. Well, we could just get rid of it and we go back to year and month. The problem with that is now we have got our sales volume grouped by year and month. When we had it grouped by region name, we had 6 times as many groupings, 6 times as many rows for the computer to consider. But if I drag it into the explain by, it considers it as a key influencer. If I want to have it grouped by region name, so have the data grouped by region name, thus giving the computer more data to use, but I don't want region name to be considered as a key influencer, I can drag it into the expand by. However, there is a problem. When analyze sales volume is not summarized, it always runs at the row level. Well, I currently am not summarizing sales volume. Suppose I now summarize it by sum, and this then groups. So what we're having is a table, so if I just have a table that has the sum of the sales volume at one level, and then by year, then by month, well, that gives me all of that data. But now I want it to be also by region name as well. So that gives me a lot more data. You can see that instead of just having one data point for 1995 January, I now have 6. But I need to have this sales volume aggregated. I need to have it in some sort of calculation of sum, or average, or min, or max. So if I change this analyze from don't summarize, which therefore means it looks at all of the rows, to sum, it has the equivalent of this table. It's not considering region name as an influencer, but it is taking it into account when it looks at the granularity. If I didn't have this, then it would be like giving the computer this much detail to have a look at. If I do drag in region name, I'm saying don't use it as a key analyzer, but I do want you to use it when you're looking at the amount of data that you can investigate. So this is the key influencers visualization. It allows you to see what factors might influence a particular measure and have a look at the relative importance of these. Are some more important than others? Now, just before we end this video on key influencers, let's just have a quick look at the formatting. Now, we've got things like the visual colors, both for the drill and for the analysis. But in the analysis section, near the bottom, there is enable counts. Now, what this does, have a look at the circle. Have a look at the outside of the circle. It allows you to see how many rows are affected by any single statement. So if I spotlight on this, you can see this particular circle is around a quarter of the data. This very little, so you can see which one has more impact over the entirety of the data. Now, the count type, absolute and relative, if you change it to relative, then the number of items on the page, which is the biggest, will be shown as 100%, and everything will be shown as a percentage of that. So in absolute terms, this is only a quarter of the data, maybe even a fifth of the data, and so this is a much smaller fraction. In relative terms, out of all of this data, this is a quarter of that data. So this is probably the most interesting of the options that you've got available here in the format section for key influencers.